This was planned. There was malice. This is a person who came to this house with a deranged mind.
A brutal killing.
She was controlled.
His mission was to destroy both of them.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
This is a very personal murder.
He's going to be in charge. He's going to be in control and never be told no. You're dealing with someone who's a complete psychopath.
A stalker is like having your own personal terrorist assigned to you.
The truth will be revealed.
It was chilling that someone's out there that can do this kind of thing.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. East Cobb, an affluent suburb located just north of Atlanta.
It's a community that's really centered around families. It's known for having good schools, so people move there a lot for that reason. It's low crime, and it's considered a really safe area.
But days before Halloween, this quiet community is shocked by a real-life horror.
It came through as a 911 call. A little 5-year-old boy came home from school, and he was stabbed about 18 times in his chest. When you hear of a child who's injured by somebody, you're more with your foot through the firewall, driving as hard as fast as you can to get there.
As detectives arrive on scene, 5-year-old Nick Smith is rushed to the trauma center.
He was with a neighbor girl, Christina, who lived upstairs.
She said they saw a shadow pass by the door. Assuming it was his mother, Nick ran into the room where a person grabbed him from behind and began violently stabbing him in the chest. Christina wasn't able to really give us any identifying features. It was such a traumatic event for her, hearing the screams, that she literally ran out of the house.
What could this little 5-year-old, 60-pound boy have done to anybody to have deserved to have been stabbed repeatedly in the chest in such a violent situation?
Cobb County detectives Randy Harris, John Dawes, and major crimes prosecutor Jesse Evans begin investigating the vicious assault.
It was an older residence in an established neighborhood. You walk around the back side of the house, you see this sliding glass door that accesses the basement from the back. Is there a suspect still in the house? What else is going on? Has anybody else been injured? The two things that stood out the most were the broken knife blade, separated from its handle. That was the weapon covered in blood, obviously used in stabbing Nick. We were able to determine that that knife blade didn't match the cutlery that Carmen Smith had in her apartment. And in the bedroom, the carpet showed Nick's blood where he was initially stabbed. And in the bed was 5 layers of bedding. It didn't look right, so the officers pulled the bedding back on one side. And there lies the lifeless body of Nick's mom, Carmen Smith. It's heart-wrenching. to be involved in a case like this. And there's extra pressure and stress to try to find out who did it.
Police must uncover the details of the pair's final day.
Establishing the timeline as it relates to the victim and the last hours of that person's life, critical in any investigation. It generally opens the doors for the detectives first to understand the lifestyle of the deceased. And from that, you will draw the information to try to solve the crime.
Carmen was a beautiful, young, strawberry blonde.
She had a lot of friends and she was outgoing.
She's a loving mother. She absolutely devotes her time to her son, Nicholas. She's there for him. She takes care of him. She does everything that she can. Just a good mom. She's also a flight attendant. So she can be gone for a day or two or three at a time, depending on her schedule. She's a different victim because when she's home, she's with her kid. And when she's working, she's out of state flying. We want to know her routine. Did she go someplace where someone may have been checking her out?
They look to establish Carmen's time of death.
Nick got home at about 3 o'clock from school, and the rigor mortis, the lividity, Carmen clearly had been dead for a number of hours. Everything told us that her death had occurred in the morning.
That's significant. The assault on Nick didn't happen until much later, hours after she was killed and placed in the bed.
The time frame between taking Carmen's life and then assaulting Nick the way he was assaulted was just odd.
He intentionally waited on that child to come home because he could have left a long time earlier. So his mission was to destroy both of them.
You start by saying, who would want to do this to Carmen? Who would want to do this to Nick?
I'll be honest, I just couldn't think of a reason why a 5-year-old would be attacked.
Detectives work the crime scene and examine Carmen's injuries for clues to the identity of her attacker.
You collect anything and everything that could be evidence, blood or hair or any other forensic evidence, phone records. In that time, it took weeks, months to get the phone records. There were marks on her wrist, bruising, that were parallel lines, very consistent with handcuffs.
She had an abrasion to her chin. It was an abrasion consistent with sort of carpet burns, or having been face down as the ligature was pulled tight against her neck. In addition to that, she had 2 small puncture wounds to her back, which would not be lethal, certainly would have been painful. The puncture wounds to her back were consistent with having been caused by an ice pick type instrument. And there was an out-of-place cord, almost like a cord that you would use for pulling some blinds back, that was there on the scene.
It didn't match anything in the downstairs of this residence or even upstairs. It may have been the weapon that was used to strangle the life from Carmen Smith.
We're talking about really 4 different weapons at a minimum here. You've got the ligature, you've got the knife that was used to stab Nick, you've got an ice pick, and you've got handcuffs that were being used to effectuate this crime as well. The fact that you have more than one instrumentality involved in causing the injuries to Carmen was pretty significant.
It's not a crime of opportunity. This was planned. There was intent. There was malice. This is a person who came to this house with a deranged mind and accomplished what he came to do. The scene itself told us that there had been control. She was under the physical control of handcuffs and some kind of torture going on from behind.
When you see a form of torture, there's a level of rage in there. So it starts to narrow down. This wasn't someone who broke into the house to steal the vault.
It was chilling that someone's out there that can do this kind of thing.
Police attempt to speak with Nick, hoping for a description of his assailant.
The child was rolled out on the gurney, and I saw a massive amount of blood on his upper torso, and overheard an emergency room trauma doctor asking him what had happened. And what I heard at that time was, "Bad man hit me with a wok," in a child's language. And you know, that was telling to me that this child is not even old enough to know what had happened to him.
This little kid, adorable little kid, laying on a hospital bed, just medical hardware all over him, trying to fight for life. Nick fought and fought and fought.
Most people that sustain that type of wound don't survive. Fortunately, none of the vital organs were penetrated. The child would be in and out of consciousness, and he was heavily medicated and was recovering. I was going to hang with the kid, you know, regardless of everything else. I was able to kind of let him know, hey, I'm your friend, you know. He needed someone. I tried to reassure him he was going to be okay. I asked him, did you see who attacked you? Do you know what color his clothing was, which he described as black? Could you see his face? And he replied that he was wearing a mask, and the mask was the same color, black. He said, I want my mommy. It was heart-wrenching.
They need to locate Nick's father.
Mike Smith was the ex-husband of Carmen.
There are always automatic thoughts for a detective. One is Carmen in the victimology, recently divorced. So you begin to look at the ex-husband.
You hear there's a divorce. You hear, well, there may be anger, there may be rage.
Detectives learn Nick was supposed to be at his dad's house all weekend, until his mom picked him up unexpectedly.
Mike kept Nicholas when Carmen was out of town. We learned that a couple of days before Carmen's death, she was working. And she wasn't feeling well and came home a day earlier than her schedule had provided. She wasn't supposed to be home.
This means her killer likely knew about her last-minute change in schedule.
Mike Smith knew that she came home a day early because he was angry that she interrupted with his visitation. In any divorce situation, especially where there's a minor, the parent who doesn't get as much time suddenly doesn't have their kid to look at and talk to and play with every day of the week. They're upset. It's just a volatile situation. Emotions get out of control, and some people can't control themselves. People knew that there had been frustrations, knew there had been arguments, knew that there had been a lot of problems because of the divorce.
But the fact is, he could walk through that door of the hospital, and if he was our violent suspect, then I needed to know that.
Detectives identify Mike Smith as a person of interest in the brutal murder of his ex-wife, Carmen.
The hospital started telling me that there were visitors being received, family members, friends. In a lot of cases, somebody that means you to do harm will come to the hospital and try to finish what they started.
They track Mike down, and after a brief interview at the station, he's brought to the hospital.
His emotions are obviously at a high point. The main thing that came to us was studying Mike, backgrounding Mike, sitting down and talking to Mike, looking at his face. He acknowledged accurately the relationship, the cause of the breakdown, and everything that had been going on.
Mike tells detectives he spoke to Carmen by phone at 7:30 a.m. that morning, right after Nick left for school.
The interview of the last person to speak to the deceased is very important. It starts to narrow down the time of death. You learn from the last person generally the state of mind of the deceased.
Mike admits they argued on the phone.
Mike Smith was angry that she came home early and grabbed up Nick. Mike was going through a lot of emotional issues.
They did have some jealousies going on with dating new people and that sort of thing.
The motivator with Mike always comes back to the same thing for me. Do I think that Mike had concerns that Carmen was seeing another man and there was some jealousy there? Yes. Do I think that Mike would have had concern about another man being involved in his son's life? Yes, absolutely.
His familiarity with their home is another factor.
A large component of the investigation was how somebody got into the house. When police officers respond to the scene, they don't find that there's any forced entry. There's not a door that's been kicked in. There's not a broken window or anything like that. This is clearly somebody that's found their way into this crime scene and done so in a stealthy manner. We learned Mike would oftentimes come to the house and stay with Nick when Carmen was absent due to her work schedule.
He knew the house. He knew the inside of the house. He knew the outside of the house.
So you've got motive and you've got opportunity, but you need something else because beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high standard. So the police have to nail down that suspect's alibi, because if they can't nail down an alibi, that opens a crack through which the defense will drive a truck.
Mike had an alibi with work, but there was still a part of that day when he could have gone over there and committed a crime and left.
Alibis are very difficult at times to disprove. Police officers often work on gut feelings. So when you have a gut feeling, you have to pursue it. You know your case. You are living it, you're breathing it.
Police need to find another way to rule Mike in or out.
Law enforcement intentionally allowed him to see Nick because they wanted to gauge the demeanor between the two of them. If it was your loved one and you realized that something this horrible had happened to them, you would expect that there's going to be an emotional reaction. When you don't see that appropriate demeanor, that's a red flag.
I gave them space and their privacy, but I moved to a window where I could observe. And when that child woke up and reached up for his dad, at that moment in time, I said, he's not a suspect. If his father had had anything to do with that, he certainly wouldn't have expressed that kind of comfort. His dad was in tears, he was in tears.
Mike had a lot of difficulty with the divorce, but did he stab his son 18 times? No, not a chance.
Detectives get word that forensic analysis of the crime scene has turned up a new clue.
There were short black hairs on her body. So there was obvious personal contact from a person who didn't match Carmen's strawberry blonde hair or little Nick's solid white hair.
If you have a hair with the follicle attached, there is sufficient DNA for testing. The difference between good DNA and bad DNA is quality and quantity. Quality means that you want to have well-preserved DNA. It's not going to be degraded. Quantity would be having a sufficient number of cells in order to amplify the genetic material.
But in 1995, DNA were 3 letters that nobody knew what it meant. So even with a root the skin tissue involved at the end of a hair, it just wasn't enough from a scientific standpoint.
On a mission to determine who the hair belongs to, police interview people who had access to Carmen's home, starting with Carmen's upstairs neighbor, Lottie Spencer.
Lottie moved in a few months prior to the murder. She worked in a doctor's office and had a 10-year-old daughter.
Christina was a few years older than Nick, but they rode the bus together and stayed in the same house, different portions of the house. Lottie and Carmen did have a unique setup in that they were both happened to be single moms living in this same house. There's really no evidence to show that they had any really close relationship or anything like that. It was more of a roommate type situation, one renting the top portion and one renting the bottom portion.
Lottie tells police she left for work that morning just after 7 a.m., the same time Nick and Christina left to meet the school bus.
She had heard from her daughter, Christina, what had happened and left work early to go to the house to check on her daughter.
Lottie then reveals that Carmen's death may be somehow connected to an unstable individual from her past.
Lottie was able to articulate for us a pretty terrifying series of events that have been going on for almost a full year in her life. Lottie and Wasim Dacre met playing paintball on the same team with each other. So they started off kind of getting to know each other in a social context.
She said that she had initially reached out to him and tried to be a friend. She was trying to be like a big sister to him because he was confiding problems at home.
At the time, Dacre was a 17-year-old student at Georgia Tech University.
He started to become obsessed with her. He was going to her office. He was following her around to restaurants.
Pretty soon, she wanted a more hands-off relationship with him. She was becoming more concerned about his bizarre behavior. So it got to a point where he just wouldn't take no for an answer.
After repeated requests to be left alone, Lottie went to the police.
He was charged with harassing phone calls. There was a stalking charge against him. He was ordered to undergo some psychiatric treatment.
In the fall of 1995, Lottie was starting a new life in East Cobb and moves in with Carmen Smith.
Lottie had just learned that Dacre had been released from a hospital.
He was free to do whatever he wanted to. He's a stalker. And a stalker is like having your own personal terrorist assigned to you.
The discovery of a man stalking her upstairs neighbor dramatically shifts the focus of the Carmen Smith murder investigation.
Law enforcement focused very quickly on wanting to find out where he was and to talk to him about his situation and talk about what he had been doing. Eventually, police located him at his parents' house.
He's kind of a weird and awkward guy and troubled, it seemed, you know, from all indications, and yet very intelligent.
His statement was he didn't even know where Lottie lived, so he denied any involvement in the case.
Did you know about this woman?
I never even heard about it till you guys told me about it.
Did you kill Carmen Smith?
No.
Did you stab her son repeatedly with a knife?
No.
Dacre tells a different story about his relationship with Lottie.
Lottie had always said that it was a platonic relationship. Mr. Dacre claimed the opposite. He claimed that he had been in a romantic relationship with her for some period of time.
Well, Lottie's telling me one thing, you're telling me another. So I don't know who's telling the truth about how this relationship actually was going on.
She denies it completely, but we've had a complete sexual romantic relationship.
With these situations, the cases can be very difficult to prove because it's a he said, she said kind of situation.
Dacre also claims he has an alibi for Carmen's murder.
He claimed that he was home all day, that he was playing computer games with friends. It was a game that required that you play over a modem, that you had to use a home phone.
I know I was home, and I was playing the set. Talk to Colin. I'm not worried.
When we did finally speak to his friend, yes, indeed, he said that he had been playing this game with Mr. Dacre.
His alibi appears solid, and a fundamental question still remains.
Why Carmen Smith? What's his motive to cause any injury or the death of Carmen Smith? Everything that we looked at in the case told us that Carmen and Dacre probably wouldn't know each other if they saw each other on the street.
Detectives turn their attention to other men in Carmen's life.
We talked to family members about her lifestyle and people that she was seeing, people she had dated before. Carmen had just turned 30 years old, a very beautiful young lady. The police wanted to find out a little bit more about their background to see if they could have been a person capable of doing this to her.
They learn about one individual Carmen had been spending a lot of time with lately.
John was in communication with her. I believe he knew about her flight that weekend.
John lived not too far away. He knew her routines, her schedules.
He knew where she lived.
John is brought to the station for questioning.
When you interview someone, you're looking for a number of tells. Body language is just one of them, and it's a very small part. There's certain very basic defensive positions people take when they are not sure, when they feel threatened by the question. The crossing of the legs, the crossing of the arms. Will they look you in the eye when they're talking to you?
When John was interviewed, he acknowledged his attraction to Carmen Smith. He acknowledged that they had been out. He talked about Carmen had confided in him. Carmen hadn't been divorced that long, and guys are stupid. We are what we are. So could there have been some jealousy that maybe she was seeing somebody else? Yeah.
Detectives need to uncover exactly where John was the morning Carmen was attacked.
The alibi that he provided wasn't anything that really could be substantiated because he was alone. So that makes it difficult. You can't say, okay, this person's here, they're clocked in at work, other people saw them, or they're shopping and they have a receipt, or there wasn't anything like that available. So the lack of alibi was a concern.
Without a clear alibi, it becomes a question of motive.
This was not a chance murder. This was not a quick murder. This was a very deliberate act.
There was nothing about him that would suggest that he was controlling and possessive and would be angry about anything that was going on in her life. Again, there was, I mean, do you like somebody? Yeah. Do you want them to see somebody else? No. Would you kill him over it? No. He's not that kind of guy. It was pursued, it was looked at, and in the course of all that, it dropped out.
For detectives, this means a disturbed killer is still walking the streets of East Cobb.
On violent crimes, you certainly want to find who's responsible and get them locked down.
If you talk to most law enforcement professionals involved in working homicides, most of them would probably tell you that they expect that they're going to be able to solve their case quickly and be able to make sure that you can bring justice to your victim and make sure that the general public is protected from future crimes. One of the frustrating parts, though, is you don't have that crystal ball at the time to know whether this is a case that's going to go cold. I want to, as a personal matter and professional matter, make sure that I've done everything that I can to bring justice to Nick and to bring justice to Carmen.
I remember the stress and I remember the focus in the office. This is it. You live it, you breathe it, you eat it, you sleep it or don't sleep it. I don't sleep much. It's an overwhelming burden. You have to do everything, and in order to do that, you have to live that case. That victim is mine. Carmen and Nicholas Smith are mine.
After weeks of waiting, they receive a key piece of evidence.
Probably one of the first times that law enforcement had obtained phone records in a case like this.
Remember, in 1995, it was a very difficult task to figure out whose number was called.
Within the massive paper trail lies a shocking clue.
There were calls made from inside the home that day.
One call was placed from the downstairs portion of the house, Carmen's portion of the house, upstairs to Lottie's portion of the house. And the records clearly showed to us that this call was placed after she had been murdered.
Records show a call was made from Carmen's phone to the upstairs neighbor in the hours following her murder.
Because we knew the time of death was in the morning, this was a pretty significant piece of evidence.
Police believe the call, which came in at 11:32 a.m., suggests the killer must have had a connection with someone upstairs.
When you're looking at a piece of evidence, your gut leads you often to the right conclusion. All you do is follow the evidence, follow the phone calls.
We've got a guy, a documented stalker.
We really needed to take another look at this guy, Mr. Dacre. No other perpetrator in the world would take the time to not only remain in a crime scene, but to be so obsessed with the person upstairs that they're gonna make that phone call. He already demonstrated that he is incapable of controlling himself in terms of the harassment and intimidation. He had continued to stalk Lottie, continued to contact her against her will.
Believing Dacre poses a threat, detectives act swiftly.
It became clear that law enforcement could prove several counts of aggravated stalking here in Cobb County. A decision was made to arrest him for those counts against Lottie in the hope that they could further their investigation.
There was never a, we can't get him for this, so let's get him for this. The aggravated stalking was an obvious crime, and it's a dangerous crime.
He was brought to the police station. He continued to deny knowing Carmen.
As part of his arrest, Dacre provides blood and tissue samples. Police also execute a search warrant of his home.
You can't crawl inside somebody's mind and see what they were thinking at the time they committed these very horrible acts. But you can sort of get a glimpse of it by understanding what their lifestyle's like and what they were involved in. In his house, there were thousands of images of pornography that were found on a laptop. A lot of the images involved binding up and torturing women, which matched almost identically to the type of crime that we were dealing with. We found some email correspondence in his inbox where he had apparently asked for books about some really terrifying things. How to break into houses, how to kill people without joy. One of the books in particular talked about how you could effectively use an ice pick as a weapon to control your victim. We did find ice picks that he used routinely to clean his paintball guns, and some knives that were the same brand as the broken knife blade that was left at the crime scene. So he had access to the type of weapons that were clearly used on Carmen.
In the search of Wasim's room, there was a safe. When I was 17 years old, I didn't have a safe because my mom wouldn't let me hide anything. But there's a safe And when it was open, there's a handcuff box, and it's empty. Where are the handcuffs?
The most telling evidence is found discarded in his room.
A couple of letters that were found in a trash can. He was writing about his thoughts about Lottie, one of which was particularly chilling. It was ripped up, where he closed the letter by basically saying that he had a foolproof plan to get back at Lottie, but that he was going to somehow let her live.
My impression is that he wanted to cause Loretta Spencer Bites more pain than she could tolerate without putting physical pain on her.
You start to understand that this might be a case of displacement, where an offender is clearly taking out his anger against one person and using it against somebody else.
On September 19, 1996, Dacre is found guilty of stalking Loretta Spencer.
He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The investigation never stopped into the murder of Carmen Smith and the assault on Nicholas. Every step of this case, every piece of evidence, every thought, every circumstance went right back to Wasim Dacre.
We never quit. These cases are not wasting away in some old file cabinet. These are always fresh on our minds.
But in 2005, Wasim Dacre is nearing the end of his prison sentence for the aggravated stalking.
Make no mistake about it, Mr. Dacre is not your average criminal. He is an extremely intelligent individual, and that makes him that much more dangerous.
He's not going to be told no by a judge or a doctor or anybody else. He's going to do whatever the hell Wasim Dacre wants to do.
You certainly want to keep that individual off the street. There's always a sense of urgency, and we're going to bring you to justice.
Police are convinced Wasim Dacre is the man responsible for the murder of Carmen Smith and the brutal assault of her young son. Now, they have to prove it.
He's a dangerous individual. Once he was released from prison, he's going right back to Lottie.
So he was released in 2005. He was out amongst us.
There's extra pressure and stress to try to grab him up. Our best evidence in this case was hair evidence that we hadn't been able to do anything with.
It was crucial where this evidence was located. It wasn't just found at some area of the crime scene. It was literally recovered from the body of Carmen Smith underneath her shirt.
By 2009, DNA testing has dramatically improved.
Some of the hair evidence that was preserved on the slides from 1995 had biological material, root. We sent those hairs to a private company in Texas so that they could obtain a profile.
Detective John Dawes delivers the sample personally.
It was quite a day leaving Atlanta before daylight, maintaining the evidence with me in a hotel room that night, knowing the importance of it and the value of it. And it worked. December 31st of 2009, I got a call from the scientist that it was Wasim Dacre. And the percentages that it might have been a duplicate profile of his DNA were so ridiculous. There aren't that many people in the world.
Between this evidence and the phone call made from inside the apartment, detectives know Dacre's original alibi was manufactured.
We have overwhelming circumstantial evidence. Now we have DNA. Let's go.
Using the reconstructed timeline, they can now prove he's the killer.
He waited until the children got on the school bus. He waited till Lottie went to work.
He entered the home at some time in the morning.
He knew how to avoid detection.
We know that at some point she was placed in handcuffs. We know that he stabbed her in the back with an ice pick. There were deep ligature marks that were left on her neck, clearly showing that she died of ligature strangulation.
He went there to commit a heinous assault. He's absolutely a conscienceless, unremorseful killer. And then to sit with her dead body for hours, relishing in what he's accomplished, to the point that the 5-year-old son comes home. And to grab him around the neck and stab him repeatedly in the chest.
On September 13th, 2012, Wasim Dacre, acting as his own lawyer, pleads not guilty.
Nick testified that he took his mother from him and that he was always going to have Wasim's rage stamped on his chest, basically, in the form of those stab wounds.
Nick grew out of being a victim right there that day on the stand in the trial of his mom's murder and his assault.
It was just a pit in your stomach, praying that the jury was going to see it the same way that we did.
After a 2-week trial, it takes the jury just 4 hours to reach their decision.
The guilty verdict was a huge relief. It was a relief to my team. It was a relief to John Dawes, and to be able to look Nick in the eyes and be able to confirm for him that we had finally done what we hadn't been able to do for so terribly long, which is to not only hold the person accountable that took his mother away from him, but to hold the person accountable that had dramatically impacted his life.
That is the best thing that I'll ever receive from a case that we got through.
Wasim Dacre is sentenced to life in prison, plus 47 years. His latest appeal was denied in 2016 by the Georgia Supreme Court.
This case was an honor and a privilege to be a part of. It was sheer effort, but the best of some of the hardest working people that you've ever seen.
And I believe that's our role as homicide investigators, is to speak for the dead, because, you know, damn it, there's a story to be told. And just because you took somebody's life doesn't mean we're not going to tell it.